A member of the other side of the aisle on this very committee called you a traitor and said, I quote, "In a better society, Quislings," referring to the leader of Norway during World War II who collaborated with the Nazis, "like the strange," I won't use the words used by our colleague, "General Milley would be hung," unquote. General Milley, what's your reaction to those statements about you, especially given you and your family's long service, distinguished service to the United States of America, as we're discussing patriotism and protecting troops? I wonder how you respond to the kind of slander I've just read attributed to two prominent political figures.
Obviously, I don't agree with the comments, but it's a free country and people can say what they want. But with all due respect, Congressman, I'm here for the families of Abbey Gate. I'm here for the families of those that served in Afghanistan. And I'll leave those comments, as much as I don't care for those comments, I don't agree with them. They have a right to say them, but I'd like to stay focused on these families if with respect.
I think that's very much in keeping with the honorable tradition you've set in your own career and your own good name.
Investing in NATO security is an America Last policy. All increases in funding should be investing in the United States of America's security and the defense of our own border. The United States overwhelmingly contributes more than our fair share to NATO for Europe's defense, and it's time for European countries to pay their dues.
Putin benefits from this amendment. Putin, a sociopath who is engaged in the most depraved behavior in our lifetimes, killing innocent men and women, targeting hospitals, targeting schools, showing no restraint. This Congress must stand with Ukraine. This Congress can never be seen as Putin's enabler, and that is what this amendment does.
When the Biden administration told the American people that the virus didn't come from a lab, was that misinformation or disinformation?
Congressman, again, I can't speak to discussions that were had on that topic. It's been a couple of years, but again, generally—
The White House put pressure on us to censor the lab leak theory. This was something the White House cared about, so much so that Facebook was having— the top people at Facebook were having a group discussion on it. So I'm just asking, when they said that, was that misinformation or disinformation?
Congressman, I can't recall the specific example.
When the Biden administration said that masks work, was that misinformation or disinformation?
Again, Congressman, we were communicating the best research at the time, but I also believe that that was a discussion that began in the previous administration as well.
How about what Professor Zawicki brought up, Mr. Flaherty, when the White House said there was no such thing as natural immunity? Was that misinformation or disinformation? Again,
Congressman, I am not a medical expert, and my job was to communicate on behalf of a team of medical experts.
So you weren't a medical expert, but you could suggest to Facebook that they needed to change their algorithm so that the American people would not see stuff from the Daily Wire. They'd only see stuff from the New York Times. You can do that, but you can't tell me if they were guessing or lying when they said something that was absolutely not true.
When the President of the United States, the previous president, suggested that perhaps the ingestion of bleach might cure COVID, was that misinformation or disinformation?
Congressman, I can't speak.
All right, got it. And when he suggested perhaps sources of light in certain orifices of the body might also work, was that misinformation or disinformation?
I believe my understanding is that was medically inaccurate, yeah.
And by the way, did that president get COVID?
Congressman, I recall that he did.
And did he get vaccinated?
Congressman, I believe that he did.
Yeah. Well, I seem to recall the chairman of this committee and I actually got vaccinated, I think I'm right, Mr. Jordan, on the same day. We were in the same clinic here on the Hill when the vaccine first got—
That's not accurate.
Oh, is that not? I thought I saw you.
You might have saw me, but I didn't get vaccinated.
Okay, I'm sorry. Well, at any rate, he was hanging around.
My office is close to where you got vaccinated. I didn't.
One of the reasons we're here is because somebody has been indicted in 4 different locales on 4 different sets of concerns with, I think, 81, 91 actual counts, and has been found guilty in 2 civil proceedings, one involving sexual behavior and one on actual corporate fraudulent activity. And we don't want to talk about any of that. We want to speculate about discredited testimony from discredited witnesses like Rudy Giuliani, whom we're afraid to subpoena. That's what this is all about.
Today's hearing, how the government is trying to take censorship to the next level by weaponizing artificial intelligence tools to limit speech in real time and at scale. AI, which can censor in real time and at scale, should scare us all. The pattern we've seen emerging is deeply troubling, but for the work of this committee, we'd have never known about all the censorship going on, and now we're concerned, obviously, about how artificial intelligence can can use these tools, develop these tools to censor and restrict American speech.
You know what? One has the sense that all of this exercise is about projection. And the definition of projection is when an individual or individuals unconsciously or consciously project their thoughts, feelings, or behaviors onto someone else. When we talk about weaponization, like Ambassador Eisen said, we are concerned. But my friends on the other side of the aisle want to persuade the public that the weaponization to worry about is the one that doesn't exist. And hopefully you will not pay attention to the real threat Ambassador Eisen and others have in fact described. There's a monstrous effort going on as we speak to structure a second term for Donald J. Trump. And those proposals inter alia include replacing up to 50,000 federal employees with Trump loyalists, bypassing the civil service protection, and essentially gutting the Pendleton Act of 1883. Invocation of the Insurrection Act on day one to quash public protests against him. A suppression of speech 3 of the 4 witnesses today apparently aren't concerned about.
Since the deadly and chaotic withdrawal from Afghanistan, this administration has failed to project strength on the world stage. And we are witnessing the development of a deadly and unholy alliance among our adversaries. The world has seen Russia's war of aggression in Ukraine and emboldened Chairman Xi threatening Taiwan, and the Iranian regime continuing to fund its terror proxies. Since 2019, I have approved 19 sales totaling over $22 billion to Taiwan that have yet to be delivered. And when I was in country last April, President Tsai asked me, where are my weapons? I paid for them. I didn't really have a good answer.
The chairman began this hearing bemoaning the fact that the Biden administration has been slow in coming to the aid of Taiwan. Is there aid to Taiwan in the bipartisan security package?
Yes, there is.
That passed the Senate?
Yes, there is.
And is that being blocked by Republican leadership here in the House?
Yes, it is.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I rise today to ask the House to support my amendment number 33, which will cut the $73 million increase in funding for the NATO Security Investment Program. This is simply keeping the NATO funding at the same level as last year's appropriations level. I think this is very important. While our own border is overrun by border crossers and deadly poisonous fentanyl daily, we continue to send hundreds of billions of dollars to NATO to defend Ukraine's democracy, even though they aren't even a NATO member nation.
Americans are not fighting and dying in Ukraine. Ukrainians are. And all they ask of the great country they admire and they want to emulate is that we help with equipment and training. This Congress must stand with Ukraine. This Congress can never be seen as Putin's enabler. And that is what this amendment does. That's what's behind it. The author of this amendment has already said she wants to give zero to Ukraine. So we know the motivation behind the amendment. Let's reject it. Let's stand with Ukraine. And let's make sure Putin gets that message loud and strong with a forceful vote here on the floor of the House of Representatives. I yield back. So I want to ask a series of questions to try to get my mind around the history behind things. So, for example, the chairman mentioned Iran's about to become a nuclear power. Oh my, how could that happen? Well, Mr. Secretary, was there an agreement, I don't know, anywhere, that actually pushed back the nuclear development in Iran and in fact was working in all respects in terms of metrics?
There was. It was called the JCPOA, and it put Iran's nuclear program in a box, as verified not only by international inspectors, but by our own intelligence community.
Ah, I remember that now. And I seem to recall my friends on the other side of the aisle opposed it. And then what happened to that agreement that was working?
The previous administration decided to leave the agreement.
I'm sorry, Mr. Secretary, couldn't hear that.
Yes, the previous administration decided to leave the agreement.
The Trump administration.
That's correct.
Ah, okay. My. Afghanistan. I mean, terrible thing that happened in August of 2021, but did it have any antecedent? For example, was there anybody who said, we're going to negotiate in Doha with the Taliban and we're going to actually exclude the government of Afghanistan we're allegedly supporting? Did that happen?
The previous administration negotiated an agreement with the Taliban that called for the withdrawal of all American forces from Afghanistan by May 31st of 2021, released 5,000 Taliban prisoners.
Oh, those terrorists that Mr. Wilson was concerned about.
In addition, drew down our own forces over time to
Oh, my
2,500 when
goodness.
the present administration took office.
And that was also, was that the Biden administration?
As I said, that was the previous administration,
Well, I'm sorry, did that have a name?
the Trump administration.
Trump administration, thank you, okay. Was there a president of the United States who said that he believed the word of, a sociopath Vladimir Putin over his own intelligence community with respect to Russian interference in American elections? Did that happen?
I recall press accounts to that effect, yes.
And did that president have a name?
I believe that was President Trump.
Was there a president who denied javelins, critical part of the arsenal for Ukraine to defend itself before the war that began last February and March, over a political issue, trying to get dirt on a political opponent? Did that happen?
Based on press accounts and testimony before Congress, I believe that it did, yes.
And who was that?
That was the previous president, President Trump.
President Trump. Was there a president who disparaged NATO and said it was obsolete and we probably don't really need it anymore? Any president ever say that in the history of, since the founding 73 years ago of NATO?
Based on public statements that I've read, yes, I believe that President Trump said that.
And from your point of view as the secretary, current secretary, is NATO playing any kind of non-obsolete role in the current war in Europe?
NATO is playing an absolutely essential, vital role in ensuring the security of Europe and deterring further aggression by Russia against Europe.
Most of us kind of find, we're worried about the climate. Was there any kind of, international agreement on the climate accord that had every nation on Earth as a member except for two?
That would be the Paris Agreement.
And what happened to that?
The United States at one point withdrew from the Paris Agreement. President Biden re-engaged us in Paris.
And again, Mr. Blinken, did that president who withdrew from the Paris Climate Accord that had all countries on Earth but two, what was the name of that president who withdrew us from that?
Again, in this case, the Trump administration withdrew from that agreement.
Well, I just say we might all have cause to say lions, tigers, and bears, oh my, but it ain't about the Biden policies. It's about the previous administration that left a mess and that cost lives because of decisions made or not made with respect to relations across the board. I yield back.
Gentleman yields. We appreciate that performance. It was quite entertaining. Chair now recognizes.
I would just say to the chairman with respect, I did not mean for it to be entertaining.
Yeah, right.
I meant for it to be
Chair recognizes Mr. Perry.
a statement of history.
It was factual.
Chair recognizes Mr. Connolly.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and welcome to both of our witnesses. General Milley, as an American, I want to thank you for your service and for how you've conducted yourself in that service. America owes you a debt. You come from my hometown of Boston, just outside Boston, if I understand it correctly. Your father fought in World War II in the 4th Marine Division in the Pacific, is that correct? And your mother was a nurse who served in the U.S. Naval Reserve during that same war, is that correct?
She worked at a hospital out in Seattle, took care of the wounded, that's correct.
And you had an uncle who served in the Korean War.
I had two uncles that were also in World War II, one in the Philippines and one was landing at Normandy when my dad was at Saipan, and another uncle that was in the Korean War.
So it'd be fair to say your family really answered a call to serve its country, including bearing arms to protect this country and to deter its adversaries and enemies. Is that correct?
That's correct. And two uncles in World War I and cousins in Vietnam.
Ah, even going further.
That's right.
And then you yourself deployed in Somalia, Panama, Haiti, and multiple times as brigade commander to Iraq and Afghanistan. Is that correct?
That's correct.
You're proud of that service?
44 years. Proud.
Are you proud of that service?
Absolutely, 100%.
And then a retired Colonel Ross Davidson, who served under you in Baghdad, recounted one incident where you ran across a booby-trapped bridge at night in order to prevent a pair of U.S. tanks from blowing up and thus saved lives. Is that incident accurate?
It's correct.
General Milley, on a Truth Social post on September 22nd of last year, Donald J. Trump said, talking about you, quote, "This guy turned out to be a woke train wreck who, if the fake news reporting is correct, was actually dealing with China to give them a heads up on the thinking of the President of the United States. This is an act so egregious that in times gone by, the punishment would have been death," unquote. As a member of this body, I want to let you know, I find those comments inconsistent with the honor we're trying to bestow on those who lost loved ones, who have served and served nobly their country. You deserve that honor and respect too. And those kinds of comments are dangerous and unbefitting anybody, from my point of view, who serves or seeks to serve public office. And as a member of this committee, I want you to know I renounce them, and I have a very different view of your service. Thank you for serving the American people. I yield back. Now, Mr. Perry complained about his concern that Iran is marching toward nuclear capability. Could we, should we have had some kind of arms control agreement to prevent that from happening?
Yes.
And what was that called?
JCPOA. JCPOA.
And what happened to that?
We withdrew from JCPOA.
Who did that?
The prior administration,
Is that a Republican or Democratic administration?
Republican,
Trump.
Trump.
Oh. Well, what about the Intermediate Range Nuclear Forces Treaty? That had been between us and the former Soviet Union, now Russia. What happened to that one?
We withdrew from that one.
We withdrew from that. And who withdrew from that?
Prior administration, President Trump.
President Trump. And do you think the world is more or less secure since 2019 with that decision?
The world is more secure if we have valid arms control treaties.
I'm sorry.
The world is more secure with valid arms control treaties.
So it's the opposite. We're less secure because we
secure.
withdrew from that.
Yes.
Otherwise, that sounds like, yes, we have no bananas. Okay. What about the Open Skies Treaty and New START? What about those? What happened to those?
Open Skies, we are no longer a party of that. And New START treaty, right now, Russia has suspended.
But did we withdraw from that treaty?
We did not withdraw from New START.
The Open Skies Treaty,
Open Skies treaty, we did.
we
Not
did.
from-
And
yes.
who did that?
The prior administration.
I'm sorry?
The prior administration.
You don't want to name it.
President Trump.
President Trump. And that was a 34-nation treaty that contributed to security from your point of view?
Yes, it did.
So we're, by definition, less secure. Okay, what about the Law of the Seas Treaty? Now, that one, surely we could agree to that one, right?
Yes, well, it would be good if we did,
But
because it
did
hasn't.
we, is my question.
No, we haven't, no.
We are not a party to the treaty. Now, when we're looking at security in the Indo-Pacific, who benefits from American non-participation in the Law of the Sea Treaty?
China.
China. And is China a member of the treaty? Did they sign the treaty?
I don't recall.
Yes, the
honestly,
answer is
the-
yes.
Okay, good.
And
yes.
they they participate in every committee and subcommittee created by law of the seas authority, and we're not there. What could go wrong with that, Madam Undersecretary?
Yeah, we need to be present.
Does
We need to
that
be present.
contribute to our security in the region?
No, us not being present does not contribute to our security.
And with respect, finally, to President Biden's big security package supplemental and the big bipartisan vote in the Senate this week, you think that our security would be enhanced or damaged with House consideration and passage of that bipartisan agreement?
Be strongly enhanced if we had that. Strongly
again.
enhanced if we have it.
And do you think we're diminished if we don't act on it?
We are diminished if we don't.
In terms of, for example, NATO alliance, credibility, reliability?
Yes, I mean Ukraine. I mean, there's so many things in this supplemental that really strengthens our security and being able to provide and be a leader in these issues.
Well, that's interesting that we're having a hearing on security. It's fascinating to actually delve into various treaties and agreements, all of which have been damaged by the previous administration. Thank you very much. I yield back. Ambassador Eisen, let's go through a speed round if we can. You, if you can, tell me who said this. The American people deserve to know that President Trump has asked me to put him over my oath to the Constitution. Anyone who puts himself over the Constitution should never be President of the United States. Who said that?
Vice President Mike Pence.
And his party?
His party is the Republican Party.
Thank you. Here's another one. Very good. I think he's unfit for office. He puts himself before country. His actions are all about him and not about the country. Who said that? Okay.
Hold on, Mr. Connolly.
Hurry up.
Chairman Trump's defense secretary,
Excellent.
Mr. Esper.
You are good. You are good. Republican appointee, former Trump Secretary of Defense. All right, this one. A person that has nothing but contempt for our democratic institutions, our Constitution, and the rule of law. There's nothing more that can be said. God help us. Who said that?
That one is the former chief of staff, Kelly.
You are.
Mr. Kelly.
And also a Republican appointee
Trump,
to the Republican
Trump,
president.
a Republican appointee. I
That's
don't
right.
know if he himself is a Republican. He's a long-term military person.
Excellent. So far, you're batting 100. If he were elected to a second term, this time he might do damage that would be irreparable. This is a very dangerous period we're about to enter into here.
That one I know. He and I have had some differences over the years. We tried to get him to come testify in the impeachment, and we were unsuccessful. That's Bolton, Ambassador Bolton, my fellow ambassador.
So why do you think, Ambassador, given all of those... Was he correct? Yes, I'm sorry, 100%. 100%. You get perfect score. Very good. But why do you think the majority here in this committee and in other committees want to kind of ignore those warnings from prominent Republicans, not squishy Republicans, not even sort of pseudo-Democrats, about what could happen in a second term in terms of weaponization?
Mr. Connolly, I had the honor of working with those on both sides of the dais. We haven't always agreed on the issues. Privately, we have had conversations where we agree and disagree. It would be my preference if, in addition to the important questions that we've heard today, and I have my points of agreement and disagreement with the others who the majority has invited. Mr. Lukianoff and I were talking before the hearing about our shared orientation on regulation of AI. I would prefer, I won't guess or impugn motives, but I would prefer and I would urge publicly or privately if we could work together at least on the Insurrection Act.
Well, if I can interrupt you, we won't question motives, but we certainly will question the agenda. And that's why I began with the definition of the word projection. I yield back.